new, hi, my name is Alyssa, and if you're not new, welcome back. So, today I'm going to be reading a no-sleep story titled, My Wife Found Something Strange While We Were Camping and She Refuses to Put It Down. Sorry, I had to read the title because I didn't remember. Now, normally I don't like to read no-sleep stories before I read them to you guys because I don't want to spoil them for myself, because I too enjoy reading them or watching videos of people narrating them. But the last couple of stories that I was trying to narrate ended up getting very dark, and while I appreciate the creativity of writers on Nosleep and Reddit, I myself have a limit of things that I can read and intake. So yeah, I hope you guys like the video today. If you do, make sure to leave a thumbs up, and make sure to subscribe if you want to see more. Apologies in advance for any typos or grammatical errors. I'm typing this on my phone with my non-dominant hand. Everything happened recently, so it's still so vivid in my mind. My wife, Fallon, had never been camping before, and we decided to go together for our 5-year wedding anniversary. Probably doesn't sound like the most glorious vacation for an anniversary, but we love the outdoors, and we figured it'd be a great break from our indoor desks. The first couple of days we hiked, watched the stars, and relaxed together. We live in the middle of the city, so we enjoyed seeing the tall blue spruces, mountains, and smelling the fresh air. It was a perfect trip. Things started to go downhill today, the day we planned on leaving. We decided to start our hike on a trail we had walked before and immensely enjoyed, planning to take a different fork this time. We were taking in the sights. We had started discussing moving out of the city so we could do things like this more often. We both worked from home, so it was a very real possibility, and we were engrossed in our conversation on the logistics of such a move that it took us about 20 minutes to realize we hadn't hit the fork in the trail yet. That didn't seem right, so I pulled up the picture of the trail map I had taken on my phone. According to the map, we should have reached it already. The trail we were supposed to be on split into a Y shape, so it would have been hard to miss. Instead, this trail continued straight on. It had been a couple of days since our first trek on the trail, so we figured we just got disoriented and ended up on a different trail. It was a pleasant walk and seemed straightforward enough, so we figured we'd keep going and could easily find our way back. We kept going, taking in the sights, enjoying the soft breeze and the smell of pines it brought with it. We walked on in silence, listening to the rustle of the wind in the trees, and occasional sound of small animals stepping through the fallen pine needles. We eventually heard rushing water and came to a small stream. It wasn't very wide, less than 4 feet, but the way the water moved, I guessed it was likely deeper than it looked. I dropped a small rock in out of curiosity. It was whisked away straight down and away much faster than one would have guessed based on its appearance. Fallon nudged me. She pulled out a paper map from the park and pointed out that the stream didn't show up on the map at all. We wondered if we had accidentally left the boundaries of the park. The trail looked well worn. It wasn't as if we were wandering off into uncharted wilderness, so we decided to continue on and hoped we weren't trespassing. Due to the width of the stream, I just stepped over and put my hand out to help Fallon. But by the time I turned to where she had been standing, she had already cleared the distance in a graceful jump. Show off, I teased. She stuck her tongue out at me. We were fascinated by the sudden change in our surroundings on that side of the stream. The forest had taken on a new look. The trees were taller, closer together. They were older looking. As the density and height of the trees increased, the amount of light seeping in through the canopy decreased immensely. Still, the trail continued on. I don't remember when the silence began. Was it after the stream or before? I only noticed it when a light mist set in and Fallon disappeared. I jumped. She had snuck behind me and whispered in my ear, this would be the perfect setting for something to pop out of the woods and drag us away screaming. I laughed. Yeah, that'd make one for one hell of an anniversary. It was only after we stopped talking and the silence stood in stark contrast that I realized that we hadn't heard a single sound other than our own steps and breathing in a while. We eventually came to a clearing where there were no trees, no grass, just a small lake surrounded by dark soil. The difference in light between the dark, shadowed forest and the bright clearing had us blinking at the sudden return of the sun. The lake looked more like a crater in the black soil than water until a gentle breeze created waves. The water was so dark, but even more oddly, there was no reflection. Fallon, who was terrified of deep water, inhaled sharply, stepped back instinctively. I hadn't seen anything like it before and wanted to take a picture. I wanted to look online when we got home to see where we had ended up. It was fascinating. There were no footprints, human or otherwise, in the soil beside ours. I pulled out my phone and immediately dropped it to the ground. In the brief amount of time it took for me to bend down to retrieve it, wipe the black soil off the screen and lens, and stand back up, something in the atmosphere had shifted. The air was colder and it was darker in the clearing. The sky had become cloudier. It had almost a greenish hue to it. The water was moving. Ripples emanated from the middle as something disrupted the otherwise calm water. Whatever it was coming from under the surface. Something in me knew whatever was coming out of there was not something we should stick around to see. I backed away, my mouth set in a grim line as I turned around to see if Fallon was seeing the same thing, and I wasn't imagining it. She was staring at the lake as well, but with an expression I couldn't quite place at the time. Looking back, I think adoration best describes it. Something almost human-shaped, but with long and thin, spindly appendages, was coming from the water. It was matte black and almost difficult to distinguish from the water and soil in the low light until it hauled itself further and began to crawl. I didn't know what it was, but my prey instincts told me I did not want to be there when it fully emerged. To find out, the non-rightness of it had my skin crawling. I reached for Fallon's hand, but it slipped through my fingers. She was jogging towards it before I realized what was happening, and then my wife did something that shocked me. She reached down, helped it the remaining way out of the water and to its feet. She began talking to it quickly, excitedly, and leading it towards me. My brain was still trying to process the turn of the events. I wasn't entirely sure what I was seeing. If I had been alone, I would have bolted in the opposite direction, but I couldn't leave her. I stood frozen in place, poised to dart forward to grab her away from it. Fallon had draped one of its long, thin appendages draped around her shoulder. She approached holding it as if it were an injured hiking partner. "Jordan," she said, her eyes misty. "This is my roommate Katie from college." She patted it on what would have been a shoulder had it been entirely human-shaped. "Katie, it's been so long," she gestured towards me. "This is my husband Jordan." I stood there dumbfounded. I was frozen, my stomach heavy with the sort of fear I can't describe, other than the feeling of seeing something human eyes were probably not meant to see. I feel like you don't need to tell me this, but I just want to confirm to you that there was no way in hell that thing was Katie. I had met Katie before, and she was an actual living human being. We were even friends on Instagram. According to her recently posted pictures, she was living in Cape Cod, not visiting the bottom of a lake in the middle of nowhere several states away. When my brain and my mouth finally started working again, all I could bring myself to say was, honey, I don't think that's, but before I could think of how to even finish my sentence, I noticed that where the thing rested on her shoulder, the delineation of where her arms and shoulders ended and its body began seemed less crisp somehow. I hoped it was a trick of the light, but the observation stirred me out of my stupor. I became more insistent. "Fallon, I need you to get away from that thing, please." "I don't know what you're seeing, but that isn't Katie," I said it as calmly as I could. I thought that maybe if I reasoned with her, it'd snap her out of whatever delusion she was trapped in. Please, remember where we are? Why would she be out here? Why would she crawl out of the lake? She looked at me indignant. You want me to leave her here on her own, injured? I had to rack my brain a bit, but then I did recall a story about how Katie had injured her leg in what would be the first and last time the two of them went skiing. Fallon had helped her get back to the lodge. This has been years and years ago, long before we were even dating. Was she reliving this moment? I didn't know what to do. She was latched onto that thing like it was her best friend. Literally. She looked at me with that fiery determination in her golden eyes that I usually loved about her, but in this case had me worried for her life. Alright, I eventually said, warily. It didn't attack her, or really moved at all since it emerged and wanted to get us away from that lake as soon as possible before anything else crawled out of it. I didn't see any choice but to continue back the way we came. I led us back along the path to the stream, glancing over my shoulder every so often at her and the thing. She was having a one-sided conversation with it about a different friend, laughing as if it had told her a joke. When she caught me staring, she narrowed her eyes at me. I tried to see what she was seeing, but I couldn't. When we reached the stream, after about 15 minutes, I stepped across it, same as before. I turned to Fallon, unsure of what to do. She had stopped and was staring at me. Against my better judgment, I held out my hand. Fallon, I'll get her across so you can jump, I whispered. She ignored me, and instead she continued on, putting one foot into the stream as if she didn't see it there at all. Luckily, it seemed to surprise her because she jolted back before she could have put her full weight on it and fallen in. She stumbled back as if surprised, shook her head as if she was trying to awaken from a dream. What? Her annoyed look had instantly changed to one of confusion. What's happening? How did we get back here already? Where's Katie? The confusion quickly gave way to fear. The blood drained from her face. She had turned her head and seemed to be seeing the thing draped over her shoulder for what it was now. She was just now feeling the primal terror I had felt when I saw it emerge from the water. She was trying to push it off of her violently. She was panicking, struggling, screaming, shattering, and silent. I can't get off. Her eyes pleaded with me. I jumped back over to help. Jordan, please, she begged, her voice hoarse from screaming. I tried to help pull the thing off her, but wherever she had touched it, it was as if it had absorbed her into its own body. My breathing was frantic. I was trying to tell her it'd be okay, telling her to stay calm, while clearly not doing so myself. Suddenly she started slowly moving away from me. Her eyes were full of confusion and fear. The thing, now that it was attached to her fully, had begun to move away from me slowly and dragged her with it. Our eyes met as we realized it was taking her back where it came from, towards the dark water. I grabbed her hand, pulled her towards me, pulling all of my weight into it, for as thin and spindly as it was, but still managed to pull her strongly in the opposite direction. Please, Jordan, she sobbed. Her voice cracked. Please, please don't let it take me. Suddenly the thing relented a bit, and without its resistance, I fell backward into the water. All three of us were yanked in by the force of my fall in the current. I watched helplessly as she struggled to stay above water. I'll never forget the look on her face, one of abject terror, as the thing pushed me away from her, and she was swept away. When I finally caught onto something along the shore and managed to pull myself out, I was coughing up water. I wasn't sure where I was. My phone was soaked, the maps were gone, but my first thought was Fallon. I ran screaming her name as dusk began to settle. Somehow I found her. She was sitting against a tree hugging herself, her eyes wide with shock. But to my immense relief, she was alive, and the thing was gone. She looked like her normal self, albeit traumatized a bit. I held her, told her we were okay. We were going to be okay. We made it. We decided to head straight to the car and leave rather than wander around in the dying light. trying to find our campsite. We come back for our gear later. We walk back towards the car, her hand in mine. But the thing is, now I can't let go of her hand. Interestingly enough, I cannot talk today. A lot of people believe in the comments about the story. It's like theories, little thingies on Nosleep that I like, that it's not his wife. It is a thing, and that's possible. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching. I hope you like the story. That creeped me out. Nosleep always creeps me out. That's why I try not to read them before bed, because they literally will not let me sleep. But thank you for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you want to see more content like this, make sure to leave a thumbs up. You don't have to if you don't want to, but you know, it helps. And thank you so much for watching.